Thank you, Zaki. Thanks, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on the EBSI Notarization use case. This use case allows public authorities to integrate proof of authenticity or evidence or origin in existing applications. So it's very useful for simplifying the exchange of information between different systems, between heterogeneous systems, which is, of course, particularly valuable for exchange of data across borders. In this webinar, you'll learn about how the EBSI Notarization can bring direct benefits to users through concrete examples. It will be a very interactive session. We'll be using a Menti tool, which will be presented to you shortly. Just for audio quality, we'd please ask you all to mute your mics and to post your questions in the chat, and then they will be moderated and there'll be regular intervals to answer them, and any questions that there isn't time to go into on the webinar today will be answered we will get back to you with answers afterwards. So we have a great panelist of speakers coming up. Here you can briefly introduce. I will hand you over now to Zaire and Zaki to introduce the content, the running of the webinar. And then you'll hear from Pierre Marot, a policy officer at DG Connect, about the policy background behind EBSI, from Spyrus, the convener for the EBSI EBSI Notarization use case, about the objectives of this. And then you'll hear from João and Robert, the technical team behind EBSI, about the role of blockchain in improving public services and EBSI in particular. And Mirko and Dennis coming in on the concrete use cases of the EBSI Notarization use case, which we hope will be inspiring for all of you. Thank you very much, Zaki.
Thank you, Margaret, for the introduction. So, hello everyone, my name is Zaki Kourtidis. I'm happy to see that we have 150 participants today. So that's great. The interest for the topic is amazing. My name is Zaki Kourtidis. I'm part of the Stakeholder Management Office for EBSI. And together with my colleague Zaira Lin, we are going to do our best to moderate this session, obviously with all the speakers you have seen. Let's have a look first at the agenda that we have, which is quite condensed but very interesting, and you will see very practical. So first, we are going to have Pierre Marot and Spyros Pylos that are going to give you an introduction to the policy context. Then we are going to have João Frade that is going to briefly introduce blockchain technology and what it means for public administrations. Then we are going to have Robert Charny that is going to make you discover and get inspired by the open blockchain services infrastructure. And then we are going to enter into the core of the matter with Mirko and Dennis, who are going to explain you everything about notarization with EBSI. What does it mean? How does it work? And the overview of capabilities, as well as a fifth chapter where they are going to make you discover notarization through a number of user scenarios and demos. And for that, we are honored to have a number of guests who are going to present their case. We have the Ministry of Economy of Luxembourg on the product circularity datasheet. We have the EC Directorate General of Agriculture on the organic product traceability. We have the European Court of Auditors on the certification of publications. And we have the Ministry of Digitalization of Greece on the COVID-19 vaccine attestation. And after the demo, we are going to have a Q&A where you are going to be able to ask all the questions you want to the speakers. At the end of the session, we will explain you how to get started concretely with notarization with EBSI. Does that sound like a plan? So I hope you are ready. So I suggest that we start the webinar with a very pragmatic and interactive exercise. So as Margaret said, the webinar will be interactive. So each time you see that screen, I invite you to go to menti.com, and I will invite you to do it now, if you don't mind. So please go to menti.com and use the code that is displayed on the screen. Answer the questions that you will see on your phone, and then the result will be displayed in real time. And now I will give the floor to my colleague, Zaira, who will actually show you the tool via Menti. Zaira?
That's right. Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen?
So I can see your screen.
Right.
Yes.
Perfect. We're going to wait for a few more seconds to allow people to join the Menti. All right, shall we get started? Just an introduction, we have a few simple questions as icebreakers so we can try out if Menti works. Let's get started with the first question on how are you feeling this morning? Remember, this Menti is anonymous, so you can pose your answer however you want. Great. Super.
That's nice. So everyone seems to be excited, and the answers are flowing very fast.
Yeah. These are very good answers. I see very optimistic, refreshed. Okay. I see one that's never felt better, which is fantastic.
A lot of energy in the room, so that's great.
On top, the participants counter grows. So we have 160 participants. So amazing.
Right. We can still see the answers rolling in, so I'll give a few more seconds before we move on to our second question.
Blockchain-ish, I like it.
I would assume that means we feel connected. Okay, let's move on to our next icebreaker, which is, what are your expectations of this webinar? And here you can answer, for example, I would like to know more about blockchain. Very high, okay. No pressure.
You can be precise as well. Huh? We have a number of expert speakers that will be able maybe to answer to your question and expectations.
I like the one about getting inspired.
No, there is something that we will not answer, which is the investing in Bitcoin. There is no cryptocurrency for those who actually will be disappointed about that. But I mean, there is no discussion about cryptocurrencies at all in this webinar.
I see that people are also trying to understand more what we are doing in the context of using blockchain technology. Very good, because we will have a lot of materials to cover those questions.
Yes, indeed.
Right.
Using blockchain to fight fraud and corruption, perfect. It's actually one of the topics I think we will cover in details with the presentations.
I see a lot of getting inspired and concrete solutions, and I'm happy to see that, because this is exactly what we plan to have during the session. A little bit of inspiration, and this through very concrete cases. So I hope that this will satisfy your expectations.
Right. I see a lot of answer about learning about EBSI. We invite you to discover EBSI a little bit more on CEF Digital. I'll add the link in a minute, but you can have a look on our documentation, and we even have a learning package which includes video tutorials that explain step by step how we moved from the digital post and then going forward explaining blockchain in a simple and very effective way. All right, let's move on to the next question, which is thank you. I'll give the floor back to Saki to introduce our next speaker and introducing the policy context.
Taking over. All right. So that was very interesting. Thank you all for the participation. I see that it's not too difficult to use the Menti tool, and we are going to use that several times during the webinar. Now it's time to start and to know more about EBSI and what we are going to do today. And it's time to introduce you to our first speaker, Pierre Marot and Spiros Pilos, that will tell you a little bit more about the policy context behind the European blockchain services infrastructure. Pierre, Spiros, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Many thanks, Saki, Zaira, and Margaret for the introduction. It's good that you see so numerous to participate in this webinar. That also you are in a good mood, good shape, and wanted to know more about EBSI and in particular this notarization activities. Just to give you a bit more information about this context. I'm working for DG Connect, the department of the Commission which is in charge of digital policy. And as part of this policy, we want to support blockchain. You can move to the next slide, Saki. We want to support blockchain and in particular in order to ensure that Europe will be in the race as a global leaders for making the best use of such blockchain and distributed ledger technology. For that, we have launched or we have initiated with partners different initiatives. So one is the Open Blockchain Partnership, which is let's say a joint effort from the different from all the member states, Norway and Liechtenstein, to work on, in particular on this EBSI project. I will come back to it. We have also facilitated the creation of the International Association for Trusted blockchain application INATBA, which is an association which regroup different players, industry players, both solution provider for blockchain or DLT, but also users, industry users of this technology. And as part of the activities of INATBA, we have also INATBA has also created what is called a government advisory body in order to facilitate the dialogue between different authorities coming from the world, and to facilitate this dialogue also with the industry players. And so that's also a very important, let's say, initiative and a very important opportunity for us to cooperate with industry. We have launched also the Open Blockchain Observatory and Forum, which is a way to connect with different experts in order to discuss different topics that could concern the evolution of the technology, or that could concern any issue which are related to the development or challenge related to the development of the technology and the uptake of this technology, with some specific focus on some application. So that's also an important initiative. We every year support. That's also important. Every year support several innovation projects for blockchain. This is done. It has been done through the Horizon Europe program, and it will continue under the new. It was done, sorry, under the Horizon 2020 program, and it will continue through the new program Horizon Europe, for which is the main and big European program for supporting research innovation. We have also initiated with the European Investment Fund an investment scheme in order to support venture capital that invest in blockchain and artificial intelligence. So this is a scheme which have started by late 2019 and which have been quite successful in its first year of implementation. And we hope to continue this scheme under the next period. We also work on improving the regulatory framework in order to provide more legal certainty to the different actors that want to develop or to use blockchain. So a bit earlier during the year, there was the introduction of some regulation concerning the regulation of crypto assets. We are now working on the evolution of the eIDAS framework for digital identification. And we are also thinking about different initiatives in order to clarify the the legal framework and to explain how the things could be implemented in, if possible, in the most harmonized way all across Europe. We also support standardization activities and skill development activities with some specific action and projects that have been launched also recently. Next slide. Well, for this EBSI project, which is going to be addressed today as part of the webinar, and a specific application or use case of this EBSI, we started to fund this initiative in 2019. We had a first demo and first version, mainly for testing aspect, release last year, and now we are at the point to deliver the first operational version. And in terms of funding, we started, I would say, with not small, but we started with a limited amount of funding, and our ambition is really to increase the financial support that can be provided at the EC level for this initiative with a new program which is called Digital Europe program. Next slide. Yes, so the European Blockchain Partnership is regroup all the member states plus Norway and Liechtenstein, working with the Commission in order, in particular, it's not the sole objective of this partnership, but the main and first initiative is really to work on such a blockchain service infrastructure, EBSI, in order to deliver at first cross-border public services. We have all the 27 member states plus 2 other associated countries. As such, it is a unique partnership, and the context, the policy context for this, for developing EBSI is really unique. I don't think that we have such a partnership which exists elsewhere in the world, even if there are, of course, very important initiative outside Europe. But with this cooperation, we expect to deliver blockchain infrastructure that will help all the different players for cross-border services, but then also for proposing new application and innovative services also at a local or national level. Next slide. So just to indicate where we are now on the point to deliver the first operational version of EBSI by the end of next month. Technically, we'll be able to operate EBSI. We have launched at the same time what we call an early adopter program, and the webinar of today is a way to increase the participation in this early adopter program, in particular for what concerns the notarization. And I'm happy to give the floor now to Spiros to say a few words about this notarization activity that he has initiated with us. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Pierre. I'm Spiros Pilos, coming from the European Court of Auditors. The European Court of Auditors is one of the 7 EU institutions, according to the treaty, together with the Parliament, the Council, the European Central Bank, and the Commission, and the Court of Justice. So we are the European Union's independent external auditor, which means that we check that EU funds are spent in accordance with the relevant rules and regulations, and that they have achieved the value for money. This means that our objective is to build trust. This is what brought us to start looking into blockchain as part of our innovation lab activities at the ECA, at the European Court of Auditors. So in 2018, we ran a 3-month proof of concept on a system to establish proof of existence and provenance, which we called at the time ECA Registry. At the same time came the European Blockchain Partnership that was mentioned by Pierre. We have submitted a proposal based on the ECA Registry, and it was endorsed by the EBP members as one of the 4 use cases in EBSI under the name of Notarization. And this is how we are here today. We agreed to lead the user group of countries interested in this domain, and we have been acting since then as what is called the conveners of the Notarization user group. As I hope you will see today, you will understand today, notarization is not only about audit. So, in fact, today we're not going to talk at all about audit. Notarization in EBSI is about building trust in general, in many diverse scenarios. But you will know more about that later. I would like to give the floor now to João Rodrigues Frade, who will introduce us to blockchain technology and to what it means for public administrations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Spiros. Good morning, everyone. I guess that you can see me and hear me well, hopefully. So I will be quite brief in my presentation because we are a bit behind time. But the idea is to explain why is blockchain interesting for public administrations, because everyone knows the importance of blockchain when it comes to finance. Everyone knows Bitcoin, of course, but the question remains, why is it interesting for public administrations to invest in blockchain? Saki, can you show the next slide, please? So what do we see here? What we see here is that you as a citizen or as a business needs to use a number of documents that are typically issued by public administrations. So we are looking at a driving license or a birth certificate or a criminal record to use as evidence in your daily life. So that can be when you are changing address, buying a house, or buying a car. The question now is, when we move to digital, how to ensure that all this information is still authentic, meaning when we move all these documents to digital format, we still need to ensure the integrity of the information and the authenticity of the information. Because naturally, when we have a digital document, it's much easier to fake it. And this is really the challenge that blockchain helps to solve, which is how to reduce the cost of verification of digital information that is issued by governments instead of using paper. So then let's move to the next slide. A classic way of solving the problem of authenticity of information is to actually use the so-called information exchange pattern, which you see here on the screen, which means that we have to get the document in digital format from an authentic data source. So that can be the citizens register, can be a business register, a cadastral criminal records register, or any other register that public administrations maintain with authentic information. And so the classic pattern relies on these trusted nodes. The trusted nodes are the sender and the receiver of information, and between them there is a secure data exchange protocol. So when we look at the classic pattern to ensure the integrity and authenticity of information, we are looking at really sending around documents back and forth, and these two intermediaries in the role of sender and receiver, and the user is typically going to a portal and then asking for the document, and the information exchange happens in the background to fetch the data directly from the data source, because that's the data that we trust. Nonetheless, this is, let's say, a very expensive pattern, and we need these intermediaries between the user and the information. Blockchain introduces a completely different pattern that is not reliant on information exchange. As you know, blockchain is all about a shared ledger of information. So what we want to do with blockchain is to create a so-called digital record that is immutable and verifiable using cryptography. Sometimes we call this verifiable claims or verifiable credentials, but notarization introduces a slight twist to the verifiable claims. The final idea is really to give control to the user of its information. So let's then move to the next slide. If we look at the way that blockchain solves the problem of integrity and authenticity of information, we can see that in the future, governments will be issuers not of physical documents, but of the so-called verifiable claims that can be held directly by users in digital wallets. Once the user has these verifiable claims, he can keep them and choose what to present to the verifier. So when I change address, or I buy a home, or I buy a car, any other, let's say, daily life, let's say, transaction, I will be able to use my digital wallet and information in digital format presented to the verifier that will check the integrity and the authenticity of the information through blockchain, because blockchain contains an imprint of the information and is able to ensure that the information has not been changed, that the information was issued to me by a trusted issuer, and that the document is indeed authentic. Now, if we look at the way that notarization solves the same problem, it's not really a verifiable credential as such. We call it a verifiable claim. So we are creating again a digital imprint of documents that is immutable and verifiable. So this is why it's an interesting technology for auditing purposes, but can be really for any situation where we need to ensure integrity and not confidentiality, but as I explained, authenticity of information. What we are then able to do is to have this imprint on blockchain that can be used to verify the information at any time with a very low cost of verification, because we no longer have these intermediaries that have to exchange the information each time. It's very simple to verify using blockchain that the imprint of the document corresponds to the one that was notarized in the very, let's say, moment that it was performed. So what we will show you today is this pattern of lowering the cost of verification through notarization of information and using blockchain as the means to verify that the information is authentic. So can you move to the next slide, Saki? Very well. So the next presentations will be explaining in detail the pattern that you see here on the screen. So we will explain how you use a document, digital information, and create verifiable claims and metadata, store it either centrally or in the future in a digital wallet, enabling any verifier to easily verify the authenticity and integrity of the information. And without further delay, let's then go to the real, let's say, webinar, which is about giving control to the citizens of their data, how to move forward towards selective data disclosure, to improve the traceability of the origin and integrity of the documents, how to be more efficient and reduce the costs of verification for governments when moving to, let's say, digital information instead of paper documents. Thank you very much, and I will pass now the floor to my colleague Robert, that is actually working on the implementation of the European blockchain services infrastructure. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited and happy to be here. Thank you, Joao, Spyros, and Pierre for introducing information in regards of European blockchain partnership and the blockchain technology in the context of the notarization use case. Let's jump into the EBSI. I will be brief to save some time for colleagues. Where we are with our network. So we have 27 nodes spread across Europe, operational, ready to onboard the version 2 of the infrastructure. And now we are in the process of staging the pre-production environment and production environment. The tests are ongoing. Our engineers are working to check and to provide the best possible solutions that are available on the market. And we see the growth of the network as a positive picture of our work. Next slide, please. So EBSI is driven by principles. Those principles were set up at the beginning of the European Blockchain Partnership. So those are informations like public good, the principle as a public good. So we see EBSI as a public good for every citizen. Then, of course, we put a lot of attention towards the governance to have an alignment with all of the member states and to have a consensus among all of the stakeholders. An important pillar for us is a harmonization. It's the pillar that protects the technical part from being agnostic. So to be technology agnostic and to avoid a vendor locking situation. We also promote the open source approach. So the deliverables that we are working on are continuously published in a form of the open source solutions. And of course, what's most important is that we are compliant with our European values, our European regulations. I noticed that someone is not muted. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And here we would like to present you an EBSI architecture in a new way from the presentations that we've used in the past. So we have a most essential flow of a transaction where we initiate the transaction, create the transaction, and validate and store the transactions. Now, we are not trying to reinvent the wheel building EBSI, and we are basing our development of a network on the enterprise solution. However, we've noticed that in order to protect all of the pillars, all of the principles that were listed in the slide before, we need to have a core services layer that protects our principles that we do believe are important. And here that layer also provides the interoperability aspect. So by using the core service, we ensure that we are technology agnostic and we can onboard in future new technologies. Then, of course, we are sure that the services that we provide are compliant with the EU regulations and are secure and allow us to protect the citizens and give them the possibility to control their data. Next slide, please. And what EBSI can do for you, because here EBSI is a project, is a platform with services that can complement your project. So we can help you with simplifying administrative processes by using our trusted registries. We can enhance the trust with the stakeholders by the fact that EBSI will be well recognized and EU regulation compliant. Then, of course, we can increase the efficiency of your processes and increase the transparency by using the blockchain technology out of the box. Then, of course, as I've mentioned earlier, aligning to the European values and compliance with the regulations is something very, very important for us. And all of that to make the process of the verification of information easier and at lower cost. Next slide, please. And of course, currently under the EBSI version 2.0, we are focusing on 4 of the use cases. Today, you will learn more about the notarization, but we already have 3 new use cases that we start to work on. And about those, we will provide information in future. And I will give a floor to Zaira, I think we will have a questions.
Yes.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Zaira, go ahead.
Okay, so this is our queue again. I'm going to invite you to go to menti.com and insert the code. Go. All right. Can you see my screen? Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, we can.
2 seconds to join Menti again.
Can you show us the code again?
Excuse me?
Can you show us the code again?
Yes, of course. Hold on. I'm gonna go to the second. There, the link is applied in the chat, and then you can find the code as well. I'll go to our first question, which is, how would you describe your current interest for blockchain and EBSI? Now, did you have a little bit more information about the EBSI project? How would you describe it? For research purposes, right? Here we see a high consensus for evaluating blockchain as a long-term strategy.
But what's interesting is that we have a lot of interest in running a small scale or a proof of concept.
Right, that's true. For those who chose others, I welcome you to apply it in the chat and let us know why you pick others.
Yeah, indeed. Do not hesitate to share any kind of insights that you would have that would not be on the screen, of course.
I'm going to move on to our next question, which is, do you have a project for which you would consider using blockchain? And if you need more information or anything else that you need, please add it in the chat so we can assist you later on. Okay, so we have a high consensus for yes, which is good.
Which is excellent.
Yeah.
Which is excellent.
Again, if you need more, what kind of information do you need? Documentation? Do you need a little more onboarding on videos? Anything, we have a toolkit that can help you map up your stakeholders and your needs and objectives. Right? Okay, I'm going to move on to our third and nope. I'm staying here. Okay, so I don't think we have a last question. So, right, here we go. Thank you for participating. Saki, you can take the floor back.
Yes, I take the floor. Thank you, Zaira. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. It's actually great to see that that the interest is still there. So, and now let's enter into the core of the matter and deep dive into notarization with EBSI. What does it mean? How does it work? What are the capabilities and state of plays? And I will invite now Mirko Iaconisi and Denis Avrilionis that will take the floor to answer your questions and make you discover some very interesting use cases, scenarios, and demo. Mirko, Denis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Saki. I will start. I'm Mirko Iaconisi, auditor at the European Court of Auditors and co-convener with Spiros Pilos for the specific use case. So in this presentation, which I will share together with Denis, our notarization business architect, we will indeed explain what we mean by notarization, how it works, and what are the capabilities and state of play. Shall we move to the next slide, please? So we live in the information age. most of the information we consume nowadays takes the shape of digital files or digital artifacts. So guaranteeing and verifying the authenticity of information is a cross-sector, cross-industry need. So we can find examples everywhere, and you can see some in this slide. Just to pick a couple, in the food and beverage industry, you may want to verify the origin and the authenticity of a specific product. For example, an organic product. If you look at the health industry, then you may want to guarantee the authenticity of a health certificate or a health attestation. If you work in audit, you may want to guarantee the integrity of documentation that justifies spending. So you want to ensure that this documentation has not been altered or fabricated just before the audit. And you can have many other cases in different sectors. Next slide, please. 1.25 billion. This number is a rough estimation of the number of documents that are notarized by notaries on a yearly basis. And here we talk only about important documents, such as deeds or wedding contracts, which have typically a paper form and require a formal procedure in front of a notary. Next slide, please. So what about digital documents? Because we consume more and more digital documents, and not only documents, also other types of artifacts. So why is it important to have a sort of notarization mechanism that can provide assurance on digital artifacts?
Sorry, Mirko. Sorry, there is a problem with your microphone. There is a lot of sound, a lot of buzzing.
Okay. Better now?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, good. Thank you, Spiros. So we can see in this slide several examples of good reasons why we need a system, a mechanism of assurance for digital content. So we have already mentioned proving the authenticity and the origin of some information, but also we may want to be able to ensure that an owner of a piece of information has full control over it, so attribute responsibility. Traceability is another key issue. So we may want to guarantee that some information existed at a certain point in time, for example, before a given deadline or after a given event. Auditability is an important concept. This means to ensure that digital information can be verified. And of course, there is protection against falsification and counterfeiting. Next, please. Okay, let's start with a clarification on what we mean by notarization in this context. We are aware that the term may raise some confusion because it recalls the well-known activity performed by notaries on paper documents. But for us, notarization has a more technical connotation. It means recording imprints of information on a blockchain. An imprint is a unique digital footprint generated from a piece of information, for example, from the content of a document. Now, the imprint uniquely identifies the originating content. So if the originating content changes even slightly, even just one bit, the resulting imprint will be completely different. And this can be used as a good tool, easy mechanism to verify if any changes in the document were made. So elements that are needed to generate the imprint are the hash of the document, for those of you who are more technical, but also the related metadata, including a reference to the originator. In terms of information, potentially any digital artifact could be notarized, text, messages, photos. Next slide, please. But let's try to identify more specifically what kind of information would be valuable and could be worth notarizing. We work a lot with documents, so this is a no-brainer. So digital documents that give certain permissions or grant authority or confer legal value or even state facts must remain unaltered in many business processes. It's important to guarantee that they are not changed. Steps in a process are also important evidence. imagine an approval step, or even just building an audit trail of events and being sure that they happened in a certain sequence. Other pieces of information can also be used as evidence in specific business processes, and we can think of logs of IT systems, data that are present in a database or in a system, or even a call to an API could be interesting to be notarized. Next slide, please. Okay, now let's move to the process. How does that work? We have two key phases. So on the left side, you see the record keeping phase, and on the right side, you see the verification phase. So in the record keeping phase, the content, basically the content that is submitted is used to generate the imprint, and this imprint is stored on a blockchain. For those of you who are less familiar with blockchain, just remember, as it was mentioned by Joao, that blockchain is a timestamp immutable ledger. So if you write imprints on a blockchain, they are written in stone, and they remain there as reliable digital evidence for future verifications. So on the verification phase, what it is done is just to take, again, the digital content or the document, compute the hash, and use this to retrieve a corresponding record on a blockchain and try to see whether there is a match. Next slide, please. Here we introduce the Notarist Registry, which is the application that implements the notarization capabilities in Dbsi, and that is currently being used to run proof of concepts and pilots. Now, the Notarization Registry is fully integrated with and acts as a gateway to the EBSI blockchain infrastructure. Next, please. So this slide explains what are the capabilities currently available. I will read them fast because I will explain them again in the next slide. So on the Notarize side, you can submit digital information with metadata, generate the imprint, store those imprints on the EBSI ledger, store the metadata off-chain, and link notarizations via metadata. On the verification side, you can submit your digital information that you want to verify, and the application will allow you to generate the hash, compare it with what is stored on the EBSI ledger, browse for linked notarization, and retrieve any linked records that might be of interest. Next slide, please. So here we spend a little bit more time because this is really how the process works in a bit more detail. So let's start from the left side. At the bottom, we can see the issuer. So everything starts with the issuer submitting a document for notarization. The issuer can be a user or an authority that is notarizing on behalf of the user itself. The document as such is not stored in the EBSI. It remains under the responsibility of the user, but the Notarist Registry generates and retains its hash to generate the imprint. In addition, we have the metadata. Metadata are essential to describe the document and define the context. They are saved off-chain, meaning in a storage that is out of the blockchain, still within the EBSI. And this is done because we need metadata to be easily retrievable, and also we need to be able to delete them if the owner asks to do so for GDPR reasons. Metadata have three visibility levels, as you can see there. Public, visible by everyone; private, visible only by the issuer; and restricted, which means that it's visible only by the issuer or by a trusted third party that has been explicitly authorized by the user. So we have here a GDPR compliant mechanism to give explicit consent to access some restricted information. Since metadata play a key role in describing and providing essential information on the document, they are as well hashed. So the combination of hash of the document, hash of the metadata, and timestamp is what is stored on the blockchain as digital evidence. All the other information is kept off-chain. Let's move now to the right side in the verification phase. So when the verifier wants to check the authenticity and integrity of a document, he or she can submit the document to the Notarist Registry, and this will generate the hash and use this hash to query the records that are stored on the blockchain. And it will return any matching notarization records showing the related metadata. Now, the amount of metadata that the verifiable will see depends on their access rights. So it could be only public or also restricted metadata, depending on whether the verifier is authorized. There is another function that I want to mention here, and it is the metadata linkage. So in the registry, it is possible to link together notarizations and create connections between them. It is particularly useful when you have documents that belong to the same business process. As an example, one could notarize an invoice and link it to the notarization of the corresponding contract. And the contract in turn could be linked to the notarization of the result of a call for tender, for example, and so on and so forth. So this allows basically to follow a trail of documents in a given business process. But we will see some practical examples later on in the presentation. Now we can move to the next slide, and I give the floor to Dennis to have a closer look at the notarization records.
Yes, thank you, Mirko. Good morning, everyone. Excited to see the participation that is still there. So coming back to what we said about notarization, of course, we're not happy with the word, but we have to use it because, I mean, it conveys some neutral meaning in terms of technology. The things that we are presenting here, there are some links that we see in literature that might be called timestamping, anchoring. The thing that we actually doing here, if we could generalize a bit all these notions, is that we provide evidence that a piece of digital information existed at some point in time. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going through some screenshots, and I will see that live later on to show you the anatomy of what is an EBSI notarization. So next slide, Saki, please. So notarization contains all of what you see in the screen. First of all, we have the hash. And I repeat again that this is the only piece of information that goes on-chain. So we can provide the possibility of erasure of all the information. And if this happens, the only thing that will exist on-chain will be just that number. That means nothing if you don't have the content. So what we see here is that a specific hash has been notarized at a given time. Next slide. And it has been added on the ledger. I'll show you also interactively later on, but for those who actually don't have Dbsi like me, they will see that the hash that you have up there, it's the number that you see down in the bottom of the blockchain explorer. And this is the only information that you get on-chain. So when we are notarizing, next slide please, we can notarize, as Mirko said, by ourselves, or if there is an explicit consent from what we call a mandate that could notarize things on our behalf, on the user's behalf, that we call a registrar. They can also have registrations that come from authorized parties. Next slide, please. And the thing that is very important as well is the metadata. So the metadata have two things. Either we can register data about the underlying information, and the underlying information could be a document or a record on a database or a state of a process or an event, whatever has a digital incarnation. So the metadata have attributes, and on the other side, we have links to other notarizations. So when we notarize, we can point to other notarizations that existed before. So in EBSI, we can create logical chains of notarizations, which is very important if we would like to trace things. So next slide, please. Now I would like to give you a vision of what we see here. it has been said in the beginning that indeed with the blockchain we have the notion of wallet, which means that basically we can have information that is detained by a user, and we can have trust that this information is not altered because of the intrinsic principles of wallet mechanisms. So we have claims that could be actually residing on even on a mobile phone. This gives us a specific and very interesting architecture feature, because until now, all the governmental information existed in servers. Now we can have citizens that can interact with governments. And when I'm taking now, I'm saying when all this technology will be available in the future, and we are very aware that this is not, we're not there yet. But the paradigm that is introduced with blockchain, it is that we can have information that can flow from a system to a person and back to another system, while still keeping the trust and having the ability to verify every step of this transformation of the information. So as an example here, we have a document that we can introduce into a system. We can notarize with the Notarist Registry. We can see it as a verifiable claim on a wallet that could be transmitted to another system in another country, for instance, that through the mapping of metadata could be verified. So we can have business processes that much more complex that we can be supported now, where the citizen is at the same level as the governmental systems. And this doesn't mean that we suddenly go to dump all the information that we have in servers onto wallets, but is whenever we have the need to interact with citizens, we can continue without breaking the flow, printing documents, and we can continue having trust on the chain of information. Next slide, please. So there was a question also on the chat about where you can get that. I will show the demo in a minute, and we can go through the different cases. The important is that we have an application that actually runs, and it will be deployed at the same time as all the steps of pre-production and production on EBSI. Next slide, please. So for the moment, what we have is that the possibility that you can pilot with us through a specific process that will be explained later on in the presentation. According to the milestones of the project, we have a pre-production that will go in March and the ability to go in prod with EBSI V2 in April. So the Notarist Registry will be available in all DNZ environments and in these dates. So in case that you would like to engage with proof of concept with us, you will be able to use the system. Next slide, please. All right. So I'll give you just 1 minute in order to clean the heads as we will move on to the pilots, and I will ask people to prepare for their presentations. And I will ask Mirko also to join.
Perhaps, Denis, you can introduce the different projects and people?
So what you are going to see now in this session that follows is that we have 5 selected cases that actually are originated, that you see, from different countries of the EU and, of course, from the European institutions, the Commission and the Court of Auditors. And I will ask Mirko to accompany me in the 2 first, and then we're going to have representatives from the various countries for the 3 other use cases, and we'll present it in the order from left to right.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we can start with the modernization of the apostille. As Dennis anticipated, this user scenario was proposed by the French representative at the European Blockchain Partnership, Berlin, who's currently in the audience and may provide some additional comment later on. It concerns a potential solution to digitalize the issuance and verification of the apostille to foster cross-country recognition of the validity of documents. Next slide, please. So first, a quick definition for those of you who are not familiar with the apostille. The Apostille Convention was drafted by the Hague Conference on Private International Law, HCCH for short, in 1961. It defines the modality through which a document issued by a country can be certified for legal purposes in another country. If both countries apply the convention, the apostille is sufficient to certify that the document is valid. The apostille itself looks like the one here in the picture in the slide. So it is a stamp or a form consisting of 10 numbered standard fields that describe key properties of the underlying documents. So in this scenario, we built a prototype for a digital version of the apostille that relies on the EBSI that replaces and complements the paper process. Stakeholders in this context are governments, authorities in countries that are contracting state of the conventions, notaries, citizens, and HCCH. Now here we see the three key stakeholders. So the citizen, in this case, is the user. The citizen requests the government of origin to provide an apostille on a specific document. And so the government of the country of origin is the issuer. And then the user forwards this apostille to the government of the country of destination, which will verify this apostille to have a guarantee on the validity of the document that is being presented. Now, what we aim here is to have a simpler and faster digital process to both issue and verify the apostille, helping as well to protect against fraud and counterfeit. Next slide, please. So let's have a look at the data flow. So in point one, step one, we start with the underlying document that needs to be certified. In this case, a birth certificate. In step two, the document is notarized on the Notarist Registry, either by the user or by an issuing authority. In step three, the 10 standard fields of the apostille are notarized, and this notarization is linked to the notarization of the document. And in step four, the apostille is delivered for verification to the country of destination. So it can be delivered either in digital form, or we have also an option to print the apostille on paper with a QR code that makes the bridge between the digital and the physical world. Next slide, please. Okay, some states are more advanced than others and have already a digital or e-apostille system that is working. So in this high-level architecture, we show a potential integration of existing systems with the Notarist Registry and the EBSI. So maybe documents and the apostille as well exist already in digital form in these systems. So in this case, we can envisage also to just connect the existing system to the Notarist Registry to notarize the digital content that is already available. So in this, by doing this, the EBSI becomes a sort of common layer, source of truth that enables and simplifies the cross-border verification and recognition of the apostille. Next slide. Okay, here I leave it for Dennis so that he can show you a practical demo. You are muted, Dennis.
Do you all see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So I will start with something straightforward. Actually, it's that if you have the hash, which is, okay, sometimes very rare to have, but in case that you have, you can always go and retrieve a specific notarization. So what you see here on the screen is what I show us previously in the slides. So you will see this is a notarization with the metadata. As we see, they have the hash. And as I said before, this hash is something that you can see it anchored on the blockchain. So here is the transaction that has been notarized, the specific hash. And actually, if you see E8FEE09 is the E8FF09 here that you see. So actually, the hash that you saw before is the hash that has been given for in the timestamp API to anchor the specific information on blockchain. So this is the only information that flows on chain. All the rest is off chain and could be removed. And of course, it is protected, as Mirko said, in case that the metadata are protected or private. Here you see the set of attributes that the notarization, and this is actually a regulation about it, is obliged to give. So there are all these things are appearing on a notarization paper. And what you see as well is the fact that this notarization is about a underlying document. So the underlying document could be navigated with logical links. So when I click here, I will go to the notarization of the specific birth certificate on which the apostille has been issued. And as you see again, there is no information that is appearing about the birth certificate, of course. So one thing that we can, for instance, do is if suppose that a specific authority wants to notarize or check the existence of the underlying document already, what we can do is that we can take the specific document, if we have it and has been provided to us by the one that has the ownership of it, we can check, of course, yes, right? Demo effect. Right. So you trust me, that one, it wasn't a good version of it. So you see that when the document doesn't retrieve it, then you see that there's no registration found for this minute. So I cannot fool the system myself. So I have to go back and show you what is the birth certificate. So the birth certificate, if you don't have it and you try to check it, you saw just the negative example of it that I cannot verify. So it has not been notarized. I apologize, it was the wrong version that I used for that. So the thing that we see here is the fact that you have the ability to notarize information and point back logical links. So what I would like to do now is to switch back, Saki, to the slides. And then I would like to show you the next thing that you can do. Suppose now that you have an apostille document, and if you go to the next, that you have in front of your eyes. What I would ask you to do is to point your camera to the QR code that is there. I'll do it at the same time with you. And if you go, then you will see that the information that you see, it was just the exact page of notarization that you saw. So someone without any other system that has an apostille document in front of his eyes, he can scan the code and he can check that the information and the metadata that have been notarized are matching exactly the ones that in the document, paper document that you have in front of your eyes. Which means that it is not possible to fake such a document, because if you copy the QR code, suppose that you would like to digitally scan it and change the data that you will see on the paper will not match the ones that have been notarized. So that's one convenient way to eliminate fake documents typically. There is no possibility to have a fake document if the digital information associated with a document has been previously notarized. Next slide, please. So in terms of the benefits, of course, first of all, is that we could seamlessly integrate digital and paper. And when we're pointing from paper to digital, we can still have trust on the set of information that has been registered as metadata. As we said before, the metadata are themselves notarized. But the important is that we can flow from paper to digital and back to paper. Second is that the notarization, the registry, doesn't require on the other side to have a blockchain system. It is a straightforward integration with legacy systems or with existing systems that don't have any knowledge about blockchain. It is, for the technical people in the audience, it's a REST API that could be called and providing the information with the metadata, and everything that is behind and how this is put on the ledger and all the technical flow to get information anchored on blockchain is hidden from legacy systems. So we can have a system that doesn't have any knowledge about blockchain that could seamlessly be integrated and get all the benefits of notarization as we have demonstrated here. And of course, as you see, it is a excellent way to eliminate any fraud or possibilities to fake documents once they have been anchored, information has been anchored on the blockchain. So at this stage, maybe we can give the floor to Perin, Mirko, if Perin wants to say a few words on the apostille. So Perin has initiated the case, the representative of France. Perin.
Hello, everyone. So thank you very much. Yes, I think there is a fantastic opportunity in EBSI to work on the modernization of the apostille procedure. And we are working on that with together with the team in charge of the modernization of the procedure in La Hague, in the Netherlands. So, and we are also working and we'll have a demonstration soon of a tool for la traduction assermentée, which means a translation that is that has a legal power. It means that you can translate, of course, you can legalize any documents thanks to this procedure. But if you have no translation, it will not be valid. So yes, thank you very much. It's really interesting. I'm very glad to be early adopters of the use case. Thank you.
So for those who actually want to check the system, there is also the version, okay, we are in the process of moving servers, so you could use that link there if you would like to access and continue following what we have here. So we can continue with the second use case, which is the publications of the European Court of Auditors. So I'll let Mirko introduce the case, and then we can show some of the technical things after that.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Next slide, please. So let's have a look at the second case, the European Court of Auditors publication pilot. So this is run, as you may imagine, by the ECA, the Court of Auditors, and its purpose is to notarize on the BSI the official publications of the court. Next slide, please. Just quickly a couple of words on the context. The court publishes every year several audit reports, briefing papers, and opinions that are a useful input to decision makers and are publicly available on the court's website. So as part of the pilot, the ECA notarized those publications to protect their integrity and also offered a form for citizens to submit and verify the authenticity of ECA documents that citizens may have received for third parties that they do not trust, or they may have found these documents somewhere in the internet. Next slide, please. So the stakeholders here are the Court of Auditors as the issuer of those publications, and also clearly the one that notarizes and makes this evidence available. The citizen plays the role of the verifier, so citizens can consult the publication, check the notarization details, and come with their own document to verify the authenticity. There is a third stakeholder here, which is the European Publication Office. We have initiated discussions with them, since there is the potential then to extend this pilot approach to their own repository, which includes also publications from all the other EU institutions. Next slide, please. So let's have a look at the data flow here. Again, it all starts with an official publication, let's say an audit report of the court, that is stored on the court's document management system, which is SharePoint based. In step 2, the document is published and made available on the website, and at the same time it is notarized via the Notarist Registry on the EBSI. Once the document is notarized, there is a blue badge appearing close to the document, and clicking on this blue badge on the step 3, the citizen is able to see the registry certificate that basically states that this document has been notarized. And by clicking on the link, the citizen can access the full set of notarization details. Next slide, please. Okay, now in terms of architecture here, what we see is that the document management system of the court has been integrated with a set of APIs with the Notarist Registry, and therefore with the EBSI. So there is a mechanism for authentication based on OAuth, and a series of calls to notarize the documents that are uploaded to the repository. On the court website as well, there are some active elements that can make calls to the Notarist Registry to retrieve notarization details once the citizen interacts with it. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of benefits here, we have clearly the possibility to protect the integrity of the documents that are published. So you always have a reference to compare against. And also the possibility to allow citizens to verify whether documents that they are reading are really authentic and they've not been manipulated. From the technical point of view, we have a very smooth and rapid integration. So we have a legacy system that talks with the blockchain application. So I have to say that this required really minimal effort on the integration side. And last but not least, this did not require a re-engineering of the publication process. Basically, we just complemented it with an automated notarization step at the end, but this did not require our colleagues that are dealing with the publication to change their way of working. So we can move to the next slide, and I can give again the floor to Dennis for a practical demo.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Mirko. So what I'm going to show you here is the fact that, okay, we are on, of course, this is a pre-production system. We're simulating the website of the European Court of Auditors. And as Mirko explained before, together with the possibility of downloading a document, there is a badge that actually indicates that this document has been notarized on the blockchain. So, okay, I have to switch from the pre-production environment to the other system. So, by following the link, normally you should end up in a situation where the document that you would see is the specific notarization that you see here. So this is the briefing paper that has been notarized and that could be downloaded from the system. So, of course, there are information about the document, but the thing that you would definitely you are possible to do is that if you have a document that is originated from the Court of Auditors and you would like to verify the validity, I hope that I have the good version now here, you can check and you would find that this information actually it's unaltered and this is exactly the one that has been notarized by the Court of Auditors. Indeed, there's a possibility that you can, the documents, if there are documents are altered, then the thing that is definitely possible to do is that you can actually check, and here I'm simulating a fake document, and when you are going through a system that a document that has not been notarized, you get this information that there is no registrations found for this specific piece of information that has been supplied. So there is a very strict control on the way that things could be checked, and it is also instantaneous. So that's it from the publications case. So now I would invite, and maybe Saki, you can switch to the your slides. I would invite Mr. Jerome Petri from the Ministry of Economy of Luxembourg. So Jerome is Luxembourgish, and he has a background on a physicist and MBA. He worked 15 years on the electronic industry before joining the Ministry of Economy of Luxembourg in 2018. And at the ministry, he's in charge of circular economy projects, and he's leading the product circularity data sheet initiative that is going to present us now. So, Jerome, the floor is yours.
Hello, Denise. Hello, everyone. Yes, thank you. So, I will present a little bit the PCDS and the proof of concept we are trying to set up with the BSI. So, if you can go to the next slide. I will give you a few details about the PCDS, or the Product Circularity Datasheet. We have started this initiative a little bit more than 2 years ago, and we have already more than 50 companies coming from more than 12 different countries in the world who are collaborating there. And in a co-creation system, we want to set up a data template with this standard and also guidance document to promote exchange of circular properties of products along the value chain. And also we want to link that to a third-party audit system, and that's why we are working on this proof of concept to certify this audit and also the audit proofs. That is what is set here in the bottom. Okay. Yes. So the idea is if you want to issue a PCDS by the company who is producing the product, he can ask for a third party to audit that and to notarize the audit proof which is coming out of this third party audit. And on the other hand, a PCDS request, also the person who wants to get this data can then, based on the hash, retrieve the validity of the information and has the proof of its authenticity. Yes, so we hope that this initiative will grow quite fast. So we believe that there will be a high amount of documents which will be then certified by the system. So it is potentially a use case with a lot of small amounts of data flowing. Next slide, please. So who are the stakeholders which will benefit out of the system? So the first one is the one who is issuing the product circularity datasheet for his own product. So he will make sure to upload the exact circular data and properties in the system and in the PCDS. Then the second stakeholder is the third-party auditing company. So they will audit. They will audit. They will audit. Yes. If this person could mute his phone, that would be appreciated. I think this is Philip. Yes, thank you. All right, sorry for that. So the third party auditing company will then go to the manufacturer, audit the different proofs, statements, and validate this by uploading a hash of the audit certificate in the system, and also given on the scope also a large part of metadata. And as Mirko said, this is then stored not on the blockchain but off-site, and that off-site is typically at the premise of the PCDS issuer or the product producers. The last stakeholder is, of course, the user, the consumer, or like we call it in the circular economy, so maybe the future reuser who would then give a second life to the product. He can use the hash, verify the authenticity of the audit document, and also retrieve different proofs depending on the access rights he's then given by the producer, as there is an requests and exchange of data linked to the PCDS data exchange platform. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are the benefits we are seeing in doing so? So first, the notarization by a trusted partner. So the fact that it is done by the EBSI and the member states hosting the nodes, we think that's the needed protection of the audit data, proof and certificates. So for us, that is very important in that system. The second is, of course, that you cannot tamper with this proof. So these proofs are uploaded in the blockchain, so you can not falsify an audit certificate or change any kind of data in that certificate. So for us, we think it makes it very reliable and gives a protection of this data. And then we also believe that the system is easy to use, and therefore it's easy to retrieve the different information based on the simplicity of the infrastructure provided. And also the availability to have restricted data only available for a trusted partner via the private information. We believe that's also very valuable. So with that in hand, we believe that this is a good add-on to make the PCDS initiative grow on an international base. So Denise, I think I can hand back to you, and you can show the live demo on the document how it should work. Thank you.
Okay, so let's see some PCDS now. So this is an example of a PCDS document. There are a lot of claims besides the information on the company. So there are a lot of claims about the product. So this information definitely could be notarized, since it could be notarized as a document or also like in XML form or other electronic format that we may have. So the information that is added on top is public, as you see, about the metadata. So what is the company? Of course, and I put also that in the chat, a disclaimer that all the information that you see here is demo data. So they're not referring to real companies. What you see here is also the fact that this PCDS is the version 2 of PCDS. A previous version existed. So if you would like to replace the information, it is possible to link, and from the previous you can link back to the next version of PCDS, so you can have all the logical chains of flow of information. And you can also navigate to the audit certificate of the PCDS. The actual form of the certificate, okay, now it has been crafted for the demo. It has a certificate number, certification date, and expiration date. And the specific notarization of this audit certificate also has the same information that is given here as metadata for convenience. If someone wants to fool the system and replace First of all, it won't be possible because any modification won't match the hash. But as a second, also, we have important, interesting metadata that could be used and also accessed programmatically if you want. So you can retrieve information about notarized data there. Jerome, is there anything else that you would like to add at that point?
No, I think that's a good good demonstration. So the PCDS is composed of different statements, which that I did not explain, but the statements are based on true, false claims, and the one who is making these claims on his product has to put the specific proof of these claims at his premise and make it available for an auditing company. And that's how these auditing certificates are specifically important, because the document itself does not contain a lot of verifiable information besides the statements, and therefore having a trustworthy or trusted system about the auditing certificate and audit proof is very important for the success of this initiative.
Yes, and this is also something that we continue the next demo about the fact that you can keep records and you can register records, of course, of systems of data, also in a totally decentralized way. So since the EBSI and Notarization Registry doesn't keep any data, it only keeps metadata that, of course, could be also removed from the blockchain. You can have the EBSI as a record-keeping mechanism where we can anchor information and then later on show it whenever it is necessary. And that's also something that we will see in the next presentation that is related to the next slide, please, Saki, for the organic food supply chain traceability. And I'm happy to have Ingrid Brouwerig with us, who's worked on the EU organic policy at the DG Agri, the European Commission. Ingrid, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis, and good morning, everyone. So the next case study, it's still in its theoretic phase, but we hope it will come to reality as well. So we are going to see how we can use this platform, the EBSI, for traceability in the organic food supply chain. So who is our target? Our target is the organic food operators and the control bodies. How? Basically, all the operators working in the organic food supply chain, they need to have a certain number of documents. Actually, they need to have numerous number of documents on several things. First of all, every operator in the organic food supply chain needs to be certified by a recognized control body, so it needs to have a certificate. And then there are a number of documents they need to have, like number of record-keeping documents on cleaning, on agriculture production, harvesting, storage facilities, transport, invoices, long list of documents. So these documents would be registered and notarized on the EBSI chain, and the control body, which is the control body certifying that particular operator, would have access to these documents and could verify them and verify their authenticity. And all this is done remotely, which is very important. And for whom are we going to target this pilot project? Ideally would be worldwide, but Rome wasn't built in one day, so we need to start from the first step, and we would like to have a pilot project with organic products produced entirely, so from production to processing on the EU territory. Who are the stakeholders? So the stakeholders are the organic food operators and the control bodies. The organic food operators, as we already mentioned, they need to have all these documents. So here, very important, I need to underline that we are not asking for the operators to provide extra work, extra documents. Not at all. These are all the documents that anyway, if they want to produce organic products according to the EU rules, they need to have a certain number of documents. So instead of having these documents only available on a personal computer, they would be registered and notarized on this EBSI platform, for which documents their control body, which is certifying this particular operator, could have access to and could authentify these documents and could verify these documents. On the other hand, the control body, they can do this work and they can work remotely, and so it is also a saving time for control body and also for the organic food operators. It also diminishes the control burden, because when there are the annual controls, so in the case of a traceability check or in the case of investigation, and the operators, they need to provide documents, this could be done easily and remotely by the control body, so the operator is not being interrupted in his daily activities. After all, the ultimate beneficiary of this is the consumer. The consumer is more of beneficiary here than a stakeholder. The consumer is, if we have the system where we have a traceability, where we can see that the ingredients are being easily traced, where all the documents are making sure that they are authentic and they are verified, then this will prevent fraudulent activities and it will definitely reinforce the consumer trust. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the benefits, and all these are 3 benefits highlighted over here. So time saving, fraud preventing, and auditability. So time saving both for the operators and for the control bodies. Why? Because, as already explained, all the documents that the operators they need to have, they will be available on the system, for which the control body that have certified the mentioned operator will have access to. So in a case of an annual control, traceability or an investigation, the control body can remotely and easily access these documents without interrupting and disturbing the work of the operator. And this can be done remotely. We are in times of pandemic for the last year, and we have seen that working remotely has its advantages, and it's even more important and encouraged. So it is also time saving for the control body, because they can work remotely and without wasting time. And also there won't be currently how the system functions. There are a lot of emails back and forth asking for documents and then asking for further documents. And this is time consuming, the investigations take long, etc., etc. So in a system where we would be using the EBSI, all these documents will be registered and notarized there, and therefore it makes investigation or controls faster. Fraud preventing, as we have seen that the blockchain, the way it works, its nature, it prevents documents from being altered. Therefore, it prevents fraudulent activities like fake documents, etc. This is very important to enhance the consumer trust in the EU organic logo. And then another benefit is its auditability. We have seen how all the information being registered and notarized on the system can be verified. Every ingredient can be traced, so it is transparent, easily to follow, and everything is verified. Next slide, please. Now, for the specific of this morning exercise, just in order to show you, like also in the other cases, a concrete example of how a traceability chart would look like for an organic food production, we have built up the following chart for you. So the product that we are going to see its traceability chart is organic cane sugar, and we can see that. You can see on your screens we have the sugar grower in Martinique, and then the sugar goes to the refinery plant in Sweden. Then there is a trader in Germany who's buying and selling this refined sugar in bulk. And there's an Austrian operator who is buying the refined sugar in bulk from Sweden through Germany. And this Austrian operator is packing the product and putting it on the market. Next slide, please. So here we are going to see the flow chart of this product, of this sugar, which is called true bio sugar. Now I'd like to tell you that all the names here, the names of the operator, the addresses, the names of the control bodies, they are all fictitious. This is just an example. Wanted to provide you with a concrete example so that you can understand how the system could work. So as you can see on your chart, you can see operator number 4, which is at the bottom of the chart because he's the one bringing the raw material. In this case is the sugar grower in Martinique. Then we have the operator number 3 who is refining the sugar, and this operator is in Sweden. And then we have the trader in Germany. Now it's good to notice that when we talk about trader, the trader is not actually dealing with the product, is just buying and selling. But according to the EU rules for organic production, the trader needs to be also certified by recognized control body. So the trader has also a certificate to do this operation. And then we have the final operator number 1, which is the Austrian operator, who is buying the sugar in bulk from Sweden through the German trader and is packing it and putting it on the market. Now I give the floor to Dennis.
Excellent, Ingrid. Thank you very much. So I'm switching to the same screen that was being copied on the slides of Ingrid. So what you see here is the same chart. So this is the notarization of the traceability chart of true bio sugar. This is an example typically of information that is not a document. Basically, this could be a record on a database. So what you see here is the chain, as Ingrid explained. So from the operator for Martinique, Sweden, Germany, and Austria. And basically, in the relations that you see here, these are the logical links that point, and I take the last example from Martinique, that point to the organic certified company with the specific information on it. And in this case, this notarization is based on the certificate that has been issued for that specific operator. And as you see here, it's the date of issues and the certificate numbers and all of this. So here is the possibility to go, and again, I'll play you the logical link from the product traceability chart to the operator, and from the operator to the certification body that issued the organic certificate. And you can navigate also back from an organic control body to the specific company that has been certified with that particular certificate. So there is a navigation that can flow in both directions. Something that is also very important feature of the system that could be used is that, and that's the first time that we're going to log in into the system, is as an operator. So here I'm logging in as the operator that it puts the true bio sugar in the market. I can log in into the system and I can see all the notarizations that actually are related to me. So I can access my traceability chart for the bio sugar. I can access also the certification that certifies the true fruit company as an organic certified company. And then, of course, you can continue by registering and creating notarizations on your behalf. So this is an excellent mechanism, if you wish, to have totally decentralized record keeping. First of all, because EBSI does not have any keeping of the data, but rather we only use the hash of the information, and then we can add additional information on top as metadata. So that could range from invoices to other documents, and as Ingrid will going to show, this is an important mechanism that you can use in a totally decentralized way, so you can notarize documents that could later on be used in audit purposes. And we are going now to show you, I give the floor back to Ingrid, on how this feature that you show could be generalized in a nearly true exercise, I mean real life exercise.
Thank you, Dennis. So after we have seen how that traceability chart works for these operators who are all involved in producing one product, now we are going to pick up an example on how this tool could help us in our daily work. So we picked up a story where the sugar, so it's the same products coming from Martinique, they made some sampling and they detected an unauthorized substance used in organic production. So it means a substance which is not authorized to be used in organic production. And therefore the product was blocked and this triggered an investigation. Okay, so it's blocked until the investigation is done. And therefore the control bodies, every operator has its own control body that's being certified. And the control bodies, they start the investigation. Now here we are going to stick to the desktop investigation. So we start with the control body of the operator number 4, which is the grower of sugar in Martinique. And the operator, the control body, without interrupting the work of the operator, is going to access all the documents. Okay, all our operators have their documents on the EBSI, and therefore the control body is going to access this document and is going through this document to analyze, to do an investigation, to see if all the rules according to EU regulation were being observed. And therefore he checks, here we have an example on your screen of which documents they check. The control body checks for products for cleaning, harvesting machines, for example, the exact location of the fields to make sure that between the field of the organic sugar grower and the neighboring fields which are growing conventional products, there is an adequate buffer zone, so it doesn't allow cross-contamination. And therefore the control body is going through these documents and everything is fine, there is nothing suspicious. Next slide, please. Simultaneously, the control body of the other operator, of the operator number 3, which is the sugar refinery plant in Sweden, is accessing the document of this operator. Again, remotely, this is done remotely without interrupting the operator. So it is saving time, there is no back and forth of email, so on and so forth. And it's going through several types of documents, like the products for cleaning that were used, the use of processing aids, and it's checking if there was a good separation between conventional and organic activities, and making sure that before dealing with organic activities that the machines were clearly were cleaned properly, etc., etc. And going through these documents, the control body finds nothing suspicious. Everything is fine and everything is in order. Next slide, please. And now we're going to skip the trader because it's already said the trader doesn't touch the product. So there is, unless he has a valid certificate, so there is no way that he could have contaminated the product. So we go straight to the operator number 1, which is our final operator, which is the Austrian operator who is buying the refined sugar in bulk from Sweden through the German trader. And its control body is doing the checks, again, remotely. It's going through all these documents and it's checking the products that were used for cleaning, the transport documents and several other documents, etc., etc. And here, the control body found the source of the contamination. In this case, the source of the contamination was the lorry that was used to transport the sugar in bulk from Sweden to Austria. Basically, the lorry was not cleaned properly before it transported the organic products. And through this record keeping, we found that the lorry was, before this delivery, was transporting non-organic products. And therefore, we have an issue of cross-contamination and an infringement.
I think we are reaching the stage where you are actually doing your final.
Yes, I am concluding. I'm concluding. Okay, so yes, thanks, Dennis. So this was just an example to show you practically how this tool could help us and how could also make the investigations more fast and reaching to a conclusive decision on what to do with the products which have been blocked during the investigation. Thank you, Dennis.
So Ingrid, thank you very much. So as you see, I mean, the possibility, we have also questions on that just before going to the next. We show the case where only the organic certificates have been notarized, but indeed we can have as complex changes as you can imagine. You can have batches of products with invoices and control documents for transport. So it is open as a possibility. And of course, if you connect systems that already have this information, all this transfer notarization could happen seamlessly without having, of course, to manually notarize things. So we switch now to the next case. So it's a COVID vaccination attestation. And I'll invite Mr. Panos Louridas, who is the director of the R&D of GRNet, the National Infrastructure of Research and Technology in Greece, to present. Panos is also associate professor at the Athens University of Economics and Business. So, Panos?
Yeah, hello. So it is about the COVID-19 vaccination attestation, which is something you see in the news about the vaccination certificates that are being rolled out in different countries. So let me give you some context. In Greece, we have already rolled down vaccination certificate. It's completely voluntary. Up to this point, we have vaccinated more than 700,000 of the population, which is where we're going, which it's about 7%. And we have issued about 80,000 vaccination certificates, which is quite remarkable because they cannot really be used for anything right now. So people just get them, and they will be able to use them for some purpose in the future. But right now they're completely voluntary. Nobody asks for them. Now the issue here is that what happens when we have different vaccination certificates for different countries. So we have a vaccination certificate in Greece. It can be validated online centrally because all the vaccinations are recorded in the central registry in Greece. The problem is how do you prove the validity to somebody who is in a different country? Or the other way around, if somebody comes to Greece from some other country and they have their own vaccination certificate, how can they prove to somebody in Greece that they have been vaccinated? So this is the attestation problem that we would like to see solved, the cross-border dimension about vaccination certificates. And the potential reach will probably be millions of documents. If we see the projections by summer, we will have the majority of the population in Europe vaccinated. So this will be like millions or tens of millions of potential vaccination certificates. So next slide, please. The idea is that the vaccinated individual has a certificate issued on their own country, and they would like to present this certificate on a different country, and the verifier would be on that different country, and they would like to check that the certificate presented to them is really genuine. And this could be like any EU country official. Travel is a big player here, and for instance, we could imagine that vaccination certificates could be used for tourism or people entering a different country, so customs officials, but also any other use. So any EU country official that would like to verify vaccination status of an individual would benefit from using the system. Next slide, please. So what are the advantages? The first that I mentioned is the cross-border certification. I assume that I assume that different countries that issue vaccination certificates do have a means of verifying them, but they are accepted in their own countries. So if you want to prove that to a different country, there should be some kind of agreement or some kind of even training from officials in one country to see what they can do to check the vaccination status of somebody in a different country. For instance, if we're talking about the vaccination certificate in Greece, it comes with a code and also a QR code, so you can scan it and it directs you to the verification site in Greece where it says that everything is okay. But this is something that would be replicated like if you have n different countries, then it's simple to see that it's n times n-1 different systems that the people should be aware of, because there will be point-to-point verification for each of the certifications by each of the different countries. So in this way, we have one centralized system where everything is put there. We simplify the problem. We have a single point of truth. So all you need to do is just to go to EBSI and see if the certificate is valid. Then the other advantage is that depending on the metadata that we can link to the vaccine, to the certificate, this can be a very good opportunity to share data, vaccination data among the different countries. So now probably the data is collected by the various statistical agencies or health authorities of the different countries. But if we have the data on the blockchain, and I'm talking about anonymous data, like the type of the vaccine or just dates, or manufacturer, etc., we could have everything in one place, and it would be easy to solve for any research purposes that anybody can think of. So that's for me now, and you can go ahead for the demo, I guess.
You are muted, Dennis. Dennis, you are muted.
Yes. So what I'm going to show here is the example of the vaccination attestation. And as you see, it is there. You can see the power of the public versus private metadata. There are the things that you can see when you browse and you don't have any other authorization in the system is just the 2 doses of the vaccination. So we see here that this is a certificate registration of a vaccine certificate that has been issued as registered by the government, the Greek government portal, government of Greece. There are 2 doses, and what we can navigate as logical link are actually the actual medicine that has been administered. So the serial number and the GT number without even knowing from which company it belongs. All this information is hidden behind. So only for traceability reasons, and in case of any issue that you can have from the vaccine, you can navigate in the 2 specific barcodes of the medicine that has been administered. It has been also one question about how this authorization can happen. And this is a specific and explicit authorization that could be given in order to be able to share metadata. That is an explicit authorization from what we call the registrars. So I'll very briefly show. If I'm logged in as John Doe, as you see, it's a fake data example. If I would like to get information about me by the government of Greece, I can authorize this registrar to register information on my behalf. Okay. So this is just an example because it has been asked in the chat about how can we explicitly authorize. So now I'm going to switch off the camera and I'm going to show you some things. And given the sensitivity of the matter, we have, even if the data are fake, we took only screenshots of them. So there is no ambiguity about the fact that actually we are talking about live data. We can have a magic link for the person that is concerned about the vaccination, that he can download the metadata of the registration on its phone. So here you see an example of what a Google Play wallet or an iPhone wallet could look like. So you can directly download on your phone and you can show this on whatever situation that is relevant. And also to give you an example of how this is possible is because when you have proper authorization, next slide, Saki, in EBSI, what we're keeping is a set of information that has been sent by the system in Greece to EBSI. And all this information could be used in order to be downloaded by the person that is actually the owner of this certificate on a mobile phone wallet. Pano, you would like to add anything else?
No, it's just that I expect the discussion on this, generally on the vaccination certificate, will increase as vaccination rolls out. So, and then we'll probably see the vaccination certificate be used for something, and then the need for this kind of cross-border verification will become more apparent.
Yes. So here what we have demonstrated is the possibility to have a common system where some metadata could be shared that are could be harmonized, and there is also the possibility that you can check immediately without the need of any system in totally decentralized way, the registration of attestations in a straightforward way. So that's it in terms of the presentations. So there are some, yes.
Yes, just would like to thank again all the speakers and the great presentations and the demo. And now, so I would like to particularly thank Perrine, Ingrid, Jerome, and Panos for the intervention, Mirko and Denis as well. And I think now it's time to open 10-15 minutes for questions. So you can use the chat, or you can just disable your microphone and ask the question. And all the speakers or the experts will try to answer at least to some of them. So the floor is open for more interactivity now. So don't hesitate, ask your question, and we will try to do our best to answer to them.
I see questions coming about cases like the PDO from Cyprus, or a question that now about land registration. Indeed, there are many cases where the notarization could be applied. The possibilities that we propose here, it's also that you do not have the need to have any blockchain knowledge or capability on if there is a system on a member state that would like to use the notarization capabilities. So you can have a straight integration without any dependency on blockchain technology to use what we have been demonstrating today.
Maybe I can answer the question from Lucas. Which data would be stored on the EBSI blockchain exactly? Personal data too? No. For this specific case, we only record hashes or information that cannot be traced back to any personal information for GDPR reasons.
So the example that we show about authorizing a registrar is the ability that you give as an owner of information to somebody, third party. You mandate someone else to notarize information on your behalf. This gives the possibility to that mandate to access protected metadata, as Mirko have shown, so public, protected, and private. Private are never accessible by anyone besides the owner. All this metadata information, it is stored off-chain. The only thing that we put on-chain is hashes. So if we remove data because of the right of erasure on GDPR or for any other reason, the only thing that will remain is a hash, so which is a number that may correspond to nothing, unless if you have the original information that can actually compute the hash and check that this thing existed.
And the original information would stay on the national database in Greece.
Indeed, only the metadata will be transferred, and this metadata will be accessed through strict control, as we have demonstrated.
And for the cross-border control, what would be used is the hash to prove the authenticity of the Greek vaccination. But the hash in the EBSI itself would not yet provide an interface for, let's say, customs officers to conduct the routing to the Greek database. That would have to be a separate system aside, I guess.
And again, what we are demonstrating here are possibilities. So there is no process that has been defined. So there are several ways of implementing the different flows. Here, what we show is the capability of being able to share under very strict control of a bunch of metadata with the ability to harmonize that and being able to have comparable information. And yes.
If I may, just because there is the typical confusion between the use case and the cases of using the use case. Just because there are such questions in the chat, in the EBSI terminology, a use case is notarization, and the other 6 use cases that have been approved by the member states, and this provides the capabilities, as Dennis said, to implement user scenarios. So in the terminology of EBSI, the land registry, the DPO, all that we are showing are user scenarios for which we demonstrate the capabilities, but then they will have to be developed into implementations if they are approved. I mean, we need to go into the details as was mentioned. Okay, thank you.
I don't know whether, Robert, you would like to answer some of the technical questions that have been also asked in the chat. or if not, then we can move to the next section.
Which questions do you refer to?
It was about the nodes, if private companies could deploy nodes. If
But that's not a technical question, yes? So.
Okay.
No, so
notarization.
At this stage, we are focusing mainly to establish network and services for public administrations. But of course, later on, we aim to open and provide EBSI as a public good for everyone, for citizens, for private institutions. But at this stage of the project, we want to focus to establish a pan-European public services that will serve everyone.
I see several questions coming on the chat about how we can engage with people can engage with notarization. So maybe we can switch to the next section. Saki, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Indeed, we can. If we. So please know that obviously, if we did not answer if you did not receive any answer to the questions that you have asked on the chat, you are going to receive an answer after the webinar. Huh? So let's move to the last part of the presentation, which is indeed how to get engaged, how to get started, how to start thinking and creating your pilot using the Notarist Registry. So first of all, I will give the floor to you, Dennis, that will explain in a nutshell how it works.
So there are three main ways of engaging, and this could be seen from left to right, from less mature to more mature. So the first thing that we can get in contact with us. The first thing is the discovery workshop, where you can have in a half a day, if you have an idea about the user and the needs, the stakeholders, and the opportunity in general, we can sit together and go through the case. So we could have a first very easy way of using the system. So we can create some demo, make sure that the perimeter of the project is more or less defined. So that will allow you to understand, think through of the case, and then potentially see whether the next steps could be engaged. Next steps could be a lab where you have to have your own data, you have a process in mind, a user journey as well. So then we could work together in a co-creation workshop, and we have a design of a prototype using always the Notarist Registry. So at the end, you will have a running prototype like the ones that we have shown today. We will think through also the benefits of adopting the solution together, and of course all the challenges and the constraints that we may face if you would like to go in a broader scale. And the third step would be, of course, on a case-by-case basis, where you actually are clear about what you would like to build with the specific resources, planning, perimeter, and impact, and where we can then work together up until you can even have a pilot, or we can even go in production with the system. So we can work together on also a phasing of the solution if you want, because the scaling up of such solutions, it is also an important factor that has to be taken in account. Integration with legacy systems or interactions with whatever processes that you might want to integrate with. So these are the three ways of engaging.
Thank you.
So we can continue from that point on.
Yes, thank you, Dennis. I think it's great. So this is showing you how it works, basically in 3 steps, and it's important, I guess, for you to understand how to get started, basically. To get started properly, and we have seen that in the different examples that we went through and the case studies that were presented, is that you need to have a pilot scenario. And this is an important prerequisite to start piloting. You need to have your pilot scenario, and this pilot scenario is made of 4 or 5 key ingredients. First, you need a target audience. So what is your target audience? What is your target end user? Citizens, students, businesses, entrepreneurs, public administrations. We have seen in the cases in the slides targeted user that it was addressed by the different speakers. The second ingredient you need is that what is the need you would like to serve? So you want to create certificates? Do you want to certify the origin of a product? Do you want to keep track of EU funding? Do you want to perform an audit check? Do you want to have full traceability around the supply chain? We have seen a number of needs as well there. The third element you need to think about is obviously what document you would like to notarize. Again, I go back to the examples that we have seen, the apostille, publications, health certificate, birth certificate, green certificate, product, organic product certificate. So thinking about the document you want to verify is also very important. And then you need to think obviously of what the objectives that you are pursuing as an organization. You want to increase efficiency, authenticity of document, authenticity of document, the traceability of document, the protecting against fraud, or harmonizing data. And then last but not least, you need to think about what are the stakeholders that would be part of your pilot, because obviously this kind of pilot requires an ecosystem around you in order to be functional. And once you have this scenario, and obviously also as a prerequisite, a fully dedicated team, of course, to work on the pilot, you can start discussing and planning your pilot. And for the sake of the exercise, I would like to invite my colleague Zaira to go back to the Menti, and I would like to invite you to go to the Menti tool using the code again here. So you can use the link in the chat as well. Zaira, you can take over. And we are going to ask you by curiosity, but also to embark in the journey with you, different questions to try to scope together and discuss what could be potential pilots.
Great. Thank you, Saki. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to join the Menti again using the code that I provided in the chat box. And then we're going to go to our first question. Imagine that tomorrow you create a pilot scenario. Which are the audience and user would you primarily target? So in this situation, like our guest speaker has presented their demo, would identify stakeholder, their needs and objective. We pose this question back to you to identify your audience if you were to pilot EBSI. Think about the examples that Saki gave.
You can also reuse the examples that were presented today. Think really about your cases, new cases, companies in supply chain, public administrations, users receiving commercial offers. Okay, very interesting.
We see a lot of cities, governments, farmers,
citizens, obviously. Farmers, very interesting one.
IP.
Of course, if you want to comment in the chat, don't hesitate.
If you need any further clarification, we can explain a little bit more, or you can just apply it in the chat box. We have moderators, travelers. Nice.
Official publication that is coming back. Intellectual property, very interesting as well.
SMEs.
Copyright creations.
Right.
Very good. It seems that I'm very happy to see that we still have 150 participants that are actively participating. It's really nice. Thank you for that. Please continue. Don't hesitate. I think this is very valuable sharing.
Right. I'm going to move on to our next question, which is, what are the needs that you would primarily like to target? Well, needs. Here you can think about, again, the examples that Saki provided. I see a comment in the chat. It said, from Marco. farmers because it would be challenging to trace food across the EU. Also interesting. Speed.
Maybe it's interesting to comment on this that in fact our proof of concept with ECA registry included farmers. It was the main. Okay.
Thank you, Spiros. Good. Here we see a mix of course, needs targeting the end user, but we also see needs of the organization, meaning objectives coming back. Of course, authenticity, traceability, trustworthiness, data security. These are obviously objectives.
I like the one which aims to reduce the paperwork. That's exactly, I think, the visible impact of the service that we want to provide to you.
What is important also,
food, yeah, very nice. Huh?
What is important to understand is, in the example that we gave, is that there is this flow from paper back to digital. That is also something that we could cover with notarization. And that's an important one because when we have electronic signatures or any sort of natively digital content, when it breaks and goes to paper, all the security vanishes. And here we have some possibilities with the use cases that we have introduced that we could continue having assurance and reliability and trust on the information, even if you go on paper.
Excellent. Thank you for the contribution. I think we can go to the next question, Zaira.
Yes. So what are the types of digital information you would like to notarize?
That's a cool question. Come, be creative.
Okay.
Task ownership. Business record, private document, passport.
So we have
Trade finance, I see it in the chat. Quality insurance. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, so we have a visible identification part, like passports and SSIE identifiers on.
As much as possible. This is an interesting one because this is very interesting, in fact. Because it's true that the adoption will depend on the exponentiality of the conversion of document we can do. Huh?
Yes.
Land registration, very nice.
Now that would be a challenge, the land registration. If we could one day achieve.
I think there is a country that already did it in Georgia, I think.
I think so. I know that in Luxembourg there are startups that already, the real estate companies that are already using blockchain for selling and for exchange of real estates. Now, having a deed and ownership of a land and the properties, that's a whole different dimension.
From a German perspective, I put in the land register, since in Germany, like 2% of the price for the real estate, it goes to a lawyer and to get an entry in the registry. So it's 2% of the price, and that's like a lot of money, in my opinion. And we should work on that. I think that you're right. It's a big change, it's a big project.
I think in the majority of countries, the price for creation of a deed and putting it into the registry is a significant part of the money you need to spend. It's also in Belgium. It's also in Poland. So the countries that I know. So I think indeed that could help us. But it's a really complicated process back in the days. I was involved in creation of a land registry in Poland, so I know the topic very well.
There's a question in the chat that said, I don't understand why the land registry will be a challenge. It's about notarizing a deed.
It would be challenged not from the technical point of perspective. It's the most challenging part is the policy and alignment between different member states to recognize one standard for a deed. So that would be a big challenge. So it's not
the lawyers' union would not like it, so they would probably go against it in a public discussion.
I'm sure being cautious of time as well. As a general comment, given the extent of in the previous three questions about the potentiality of the notarization, there is definitely, as you can imagine, resources that have to be engaged, both sides, from member states, from the Commission, all of that. So there is a qualification, of course, step that is important. So I don't know if any of the gentlemen would like to make a statement about that. DG Connect or Digit?
Now, regarding the costs, because I've noticed that this question is coming back. So Commission as such cannot charge outside entities. Of course, we are now in development of a business model that will cover different use cases, user scenarios. And it's, I guess, at this stage, very hard to say how much it will cost and what will be the precise business model, as we are still in a phase of establishing service level agreements with the node operators and building the cost model.
Shall we move on to our next question?
If I may, just to mention as well, because what Dennis said was also about the fact that there are many interests, and then there will be some kind of acceptance of what can go on the EBSI, what is relevant, and what will be also the way to proceed. Prioritize cost both on the side of the EU and on the side of the member states, because there is certainly the part that needs to be done by the requesters, I would say the public administrations in this case. Thank you.
So here to complement, we have European blockchain partnership that needs to, and we have a policy and technical group under this initiative. And therefore, the work that will be included into the EBSI and pilots, they need to be consulted with the European blockchain partnership members.
All right, thank you, Robert. Let's move on to our next question. If there's not any further question, all right, what are the main objectives you would like to achieve? Again, here, think about your stakeholders, your audience, what they need for your own projects. One at a time. Decentralization of processes.
Yeah, I guess here the same type of information comes then for the question we had on the needs, which was very much on the objectives as well. So we understand that this is very similar.
Right. Cost reduction.
All right.
Considering time. Yeah, go ahead, Saki.
Yeah, considering time and the fact that we had a lot of interaction, maybe we have a last question before going back to the slides and tell you and guide you towards, let's say, what is the best to do for you now, for your depending on your interest and your readiness, obviously. And we would like to have a last question for you. Which is if you now would have to give an idea on your level of readiness to get started and to create your pilot, what would you say?
Yes. A strong yes, I am ready. Almost ready. Still good.
Great. Do not hesitate. This question is an important one, even if, of course, we have mentioned the qualification, the fact that there is a governance. This is extremely important for us to understand the readiness of people and to guide you through the proper channels.
We have an equal.
Yeah, indeed. It seems to be very balanced.
Right.
Okay, great. So I will take over. Maybe on the last slides, we still have some answer. Do not hesitate to answer, to continue on answering. I don't think that the question will be closed.
No, I'll leave it here. So later on.
All right.
There is also an interesting question on the chat in regards of the digital euro. We are not yet there, so it's not planned. We have upcoming use cases with the tokenization aspects, but we are far from the digital euro.
So and maybe this is time to start concluding. You have seen that you have a very balanced, let's say, level of readiness, which is good. And we have for you, depending on your level of readiness, a suggestion to guide you through the next steps. I will also invite my colleagues to put in the chat the necessary links when I am referring to them. So let's imagine that you are in the case where you say it's not for me or I need to know more. We suggest you to visit the CEF Digital website. We have learning package with videos, tutorials, toolkits. We also have documentations with the specifications and all you need to know about EBSI and the different use cases. And you can get more information to familiarize yourself with the content, to get to know more about EBSI, to deep dive, and to have some educational material that really enables you to, let's say, know more about the topic. So I invite my colleague to share in the chat the website, the learning package, and the documentation that you can immediately click on and check. Imagine now that you are in the second case, which I am almost ready. In that case, we suggest you to get in contact with the notarization team. You see the contact detail below, Mirko Iaconisi, that you have heard earlier speaking, and they will help you clarify the potential next steps through discussion, through emails. And then imagine that you are in a case where you believe you are ready. Our suggestion is also that you get in contact with the notarization team via the same address email, but this time to discuss ideas and potentially plan your workshop, your lab, your pilot, and join the eventually after qualification process, the early adopter program. Maybe Robert, you want to make a small word about the early adopter program?
Early Adopters Program is an initiative that is community driven. I don't know if I've heard Pierre, maybe? No. So it's a community driven initiative started by our conveners together in order to open for public administrations the way to be involved in the project more. Of course, those public administrations are working very closely with private organizations, and therefore private organizations that are involved in public, in the development of the public services, are also having an access to the early adopters program. Regarding the details, I would suggest to register yourself for the early adopters webinar that will come along, and get more information about it from the community website, the link I've shared in the chat. That's it. Thank you.
Indeed, early adopter webinar that will happen mid-March. You can see the date online. Thank you very much, Robert. I think it's time to conclude. I don't know if someone wants to have a last word for the audience. Then
yes, from my side, I would like to thank everyone for the input, the very interesting questions. I know that we couldn't answer all of them, but we'll go through and we'll make sure that in the subsequent information that we are releasing about notarization, we'll try to address them. So thank you very much for the input, and very valuable.
And as a conclusion, and it's the last one, we invite you to go last time to the Menti tool, because we are asking you, Zaira will ask you 2-3 questions just for us to continuously improve and to know how you have felt around all along the session. So thank you for going a last time to the Menti tool, as it will help us continuously improve. Zaira, I let you the floor.
Thank you, Saki. So let's go into it. What did you like about the presentation? You can also suggest any improvements.
I see we still have more than 100 participants, so please do not hesitate to comment. This is anonymous. You can say whatever you want, and this is really a tool for us to understand how to do it even better.
This one is my favorite.
Thank you for the one that wrote Saki. That's nice. It's a nice one. It's a nice one.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Let's move on quickly to our. We can continue answering questions, but these are just tooting our confidence.
No, thank you very much. It's very useful. We see that the concreteness, the examples, we see that a good organization is important. We see that the clarity of the information is important. So all of this is very, very helpful. And we are going to continuously improve our presentation. Thank you very much for that. Can go to the next question.
Right. Which topic was not clear to you and you would like further clarification?
Again, don't hesitate. It's anonymous. And more we know about that, more we will be able to come back to you with clearer answer.
I see that the costs are still coming back. Yeah. I think this will come along very soon.
All right.
Interesting. How private organization can join the cost of EBSI, how to plug. Okay.
You can always contact us at our service desk, which you will find on CEF Digital, and then ask any questions for clarification, and we will provide you the answer.
Okay, we see that we need to be a little bit more precise on the onboarding process.
Yes, there is deliberately in a few hours we couldn't cover all of that. So there are things about the mandates of registrars, the onboarding, the possibility to notarize on behalf of somebody else. These are things that unfortunately we had to be very quick. So we concentrated on the essence of the notarization, that is the ability to anchor information and have a proof of evidence. And of course, we have to come back to very important questions as you're asking. We had to make some choices in the content, so that's why we focused on the heart of the matter, and then we'll come back to the questions. Thank you very much for the input.
Exactly. Thank you very much. And Zaira, I think that you can go to the last question and conclude.
Right. So after the presentation and a 2-hour and 40 minutes webinar, how do you feel now? I hope you feel as exciting and great and fantastic as we first started.
The usual answer is exhausted. Angry. I like that one. Stimulated, inspired. That's good. That's good. The desire to act now.
More blockchains, indeed. Thank you.
I see my name. Yes. Ready for a break. Okay, me too. Energized. That's what we want to hear.
Happy to see the movement. That's nice. That's very nice. Super important.
Right.
Still great. So someone was very good at the beginning and very good now. Excellent. Positive attitudes. Okay. That was wonderful. Thank you very much for your participation. It's always a pleasure for us to host this type of webinar. More is coming. Do not hesitate to have a look at all the materials that has been shared on the chat. And perhaps Robert, you want to do a last word?
I'm super excited and super happy that we had such a great participants number and participation in general, and to get such amazing feedback at the end of a webinar. Thank you to our conveners of the notarization use case that spent enormous amount of time in order to help us prepare the presentations, and have a good lunch, and let's see each other soon. Now, introducing
and do not forget that.
Yes.
Sorry, Robert.
Yes.
I just wanted to, before forgetting, the Menti result, you are going to receive that by email together with the publication. So it has been recorded. All of this will be available online, and we are of course going to follow up on everything that has been produced today. And all of this will be available, and you will be informed on time about when it's published.
Right. One last thing, I'll add the satisfaction survey of this webinar in the chat. So those who want to, give in comments that wasn't presented here, please feel free to do so.
We can consider this webinar as officially closed. I say you bye-bye. See you next time. I hope to see you again for the next webinars, and we will stay until the last participant is gone.
Thank you.